Have a seat, Pallavi.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Pallavi, you are from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh.
Yes, sir.
You have done BA LLB, and your optional is also law.
Yes, sir.
And you have been house captain
Yes, sir.
in Kamil School.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Singing vocal Hindustani classical music is
Yes,
one
sir.
of your hobbies, and also you read thrillers. So, when we talk about law, tell me, what do you understand by recusal and conflict of interest?
Right, sir. I think they are interrelated concepts. I would first like to answer what a conflict of interest is. In the terms of law, wherever any party, be it in quasi-judicial sphere or in the judicial sphere, who has the ability to determine the rights and liabilities of the party or determine the obligation of any dispute that has come before them, have any sort of interest in the outcome or have any prior relationship to the parties themselves. That I would define as conflict of interest, sir. And recusal is the voluntarily backing out of such judicial authority because of any existing conflict of interest.
Okay. What are the constitutional provisions for state bifurcation? Which articles of the Constitution talks about states bifurcation or maybe reorganization of the states?
Sir, I think Article 3
Yeah.
of the Constitution talks about it.
Correct. 2, 3, and 4. All right. Which article talks about animal rights in the Constitution?
Sir, animal rights are protected under the directive principles of state policy, wherein I can't name the numbers,
Okay,
I
no
can't
problem.
recall it.
Where do you think prohibition word occurs in the Constitution? At which places?
So
Prohibition. It occurs at a number of places. Can you, and all in different contexts. Can you name some of them?
So one context that comes to mind is prohibition of consumption of alcohol in the DPSPs.
Correct.
Uh,
Another very important remedy is there.
so perhaps you can give me a hint.
The writ.
Right, one of the 5 writs is
Correct,
prohibition
correct.
under Article 32.
Yeah, and there is one more
26.
place where prohibition is also there. But anyway,
Okay, sir.
all right. Now, house captain. So tell me, what are the requirements or attributes of a captain or leader? Because you would be leading a team of officers working under you, even if you are a collector or a director or a secretary. What are the essential requirements of a leader?
Sir, I think one of the most important requirements of a leader is honesty. They have to be honest with respect to their own capabilities. They have to be honest with respect to assessing the capabilities of the people who work under them, which makes them accountable, which makes them a better leader in terms of resource allocation, allocation of duties, and delegation of tasks. In addition to that, sir, I think having the ability to listen to your subordinates, so people who are working under you, is also very important, which I would say is your receptivity to feedback, because that allows you to create coordination and cohesion in the unit that you're working with.
What about other things like integrity?
Sir, integrity is also essential because it isn't merely accountability to a third party, but it is accountability to yourself with respect to the aims and goals that you've set for yourself and your team. And it allows for a sort of recollection of your tasks and gives
What about
you...
efficiency and effectiveness?
Sir, efficiency
One
and...
can be very, very honest
Yes.
and not perform anything.
Right,
It does
sir.
not produce a result.
No,
So
sir, I agree.
honesty-
Efficiency and
yeah.
effectiveness are
Okay.
equally important.
All right. Now, do you think a students' union necessary in a case of a college or a university? Don't you think that students' union, because students' union are the first step towards politics, and the students come to the college and university to study. Do you think the union should be allowed to be formed in the colleges?
Sir, I do think unions should be allowed to
Okay.
be formed in the colleges because one of the most essential things that a union is able to achieve is to effectively communicate with the administration in order to coherently place the requirements of the student body in front of the administration. Sir, I think they form a very important link between the people who have the ability to make a change in the student environment and the requirements of the students themselves. So I think unions are essential. However, they must function within the parameters of the student the university itself. It is important to recognize that the main purpose of an educational institute is to impart education, and any activity that can inhibit that must be discouraged, sir.
Okay, talking about the Hindustani classical music,
Yes,
some
sir.
of the ragas have been we have derived them from southern part of the country
Yes,
into
sir.
the northern part. Can you name one or two such ragas which have come from the southern India?
Sir, Rag Bhairavi is a rag that is inspired from Carnatic music as well. That is derived from the Thaat, Bhairav Thaat itself, which also has similarities with Carnatic music. Sir, apart from that, I can't recall.
Charukeshi?
Sir, Charukeshi is another
Also
such
another?
rag,
Okay.
right, sir?
What is the time at which Bhairav Rag is generally sung or practiced?
Sir, I think it's sung in a time called the Purvang, which is early morning or late at night. It's a division of time between 4 a.m. and to early morning, sir.
Which rag do you find to be most melodious amongst the Hindustani rags?
Sir, my favorite is Rag Mia Malhar,
Mia Malhar.
that is derived from Kafi Thaat, sir.
Okay. Any particular Bollywood song which is based on the Mia ki Malhar?
Sir, Bol Re Papiha.
Okay.
It's based on Mia Malhar Thaat.
One of the
itself, sir.
ghazal singers was very fond of Mia ki Malhar
Sir,
in Pakistan. In his ghazals, you could hear
sir, I can't recall. I'm so
Mehdi
sorry.
Hassan. He was very
Mehdi
fond of
Hassan,
Mia
right,
ki
sir.
Malhar.
Yeah, of course.
Pallavi,
Yes, ma'am.
India has assumed the presidency of one of the international bodies.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
G20.
What is the mandate of G20?
Ma'am, G20 has been organized as one of the premier economic institutions in the entire world.
For what purpose?
Ma'am, for ensuring global financial stability. It was created after the Asian financial crisis of 1997 with the mandate of ensuring that the global financial systems are strengthened and are regulated, ma'am.
How many members?
Ma'am, G20 has 19 countries and European Union.
Okay. And how much of world gross product does it represent?
I'm around 85%, if I'm not
80.
correct. 80%.
75% international trade and 80% good. Okay. Now, G20 there has been a demand for removal of Russia.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you say on that?
Ma'am, I think while the intention behind such a demand might be noble, because we want to create moral pressure on Russia to back out of Ukraine, but I think in the long
And this
term,
is not just Ukraine war, it is before that also.
ma'am, yes, ma'am, their annexation of Crimea and basically their aggressive actions towards their neighbors. But I think in the long term, since Russia represents a large part of the country, it represents a large part of crude oil, of important essential commodities as well, and has been a member of most international global financial setups. I think it would hinder the global stability in the long run. Ma'am.
Okay. What is your opinion on a beauty pageant? Should it be banned because it is just display of women's, physical parts, or does it have a purposeful meaning?
Ma'am, I think we need to view it in two segments. First is the thing that you've rightly pointed out, that it leads to objectification of women and their body parts and has a long-term domino effect on the way that young women feel about themselves. But the second really important aspect that is connected to this is international recognition of countries on a global scale, and ma'am, scholarship funds and monetary allocations that are attached to these beauty pageants. So
And
I
also
think
beauty with a purpose.
Yes, ma'am, beauty with a purpose.
Purpose.
Many of our
Can you name
international-
some of the Indians who've made the mark? There are 3 kinds of pageants at the global level. Do you know which are the 3?
Ma'am, Miss Universe, Miss World, and I think Mrs. World. There is for
Miss Earth.
Miss Earth, right, ma'am.
So any of the Indians who made to any of these 3?
Ma'am, Sushmita Sen,
Yeah,
Priyanka Chopra,
yeah,
Manushi Chillar.
yeah.
Ma'am, these are the Aishwarya Rai, perhaps.
Yeah,
Aishwarya Rai.
yeah.
Ma'am, these are the few that come to mind.
All right. The first one was?
Ma'am, Sushmita Sen, I think.
No, much
Much before that. Ma'am,
Yeah.
I'm not aware. I'm so sorry.
1966, Rita Faria.
Rita Faria, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Now you've been a debater. You have participated in moot courts, and you've got some awards. So a few questions on that.
Yes, ma'am.
There are a large number of fake lawyers these days crowding the courts.
Fake lawyers.
Yes, there
Yes,
was a
ma'am.
survey done just before the lockdown, and 60 to 70% were found to be fake. Why is there still no action, and what would you do if you were the law minister?
Ma'am, I think firstly I would like to answer why and why there is no action. There is a process of registration with the Bar Council of India as well as with the State Bar Council in order to be qualified as a lawyer. And for that you need certain qualification
Okay.
degrees. Ma'am, because this process
Despite
is very
all
lax.
Despite all that, why is it happening?
Ma'am,
So
firstly,
rampant.
the process is lax, and second, while filing the wakalatnama in the courts, there is no process, there is no certification that you have to necessarily provide of your registration with the BCI,
So
which
what
is why
would
it's
you
so
do?
easy.
What would you do?
Ma'am, I would institute this process of certification of your registration with the Bar Council of India, and that it is continuing and hasn't expired. And secondly, whenever you are supposed to submit the wakalatnama in front of the courts, I would say that you give a copy of your registration as well. Ma'am, this would
Okay.
ensure that
Now,
it's not.
at the
exhibited.
time of independence, women in India were given a full voting right,
Yes, ma'am.
which is one of the rare rights which India had. Even in the US, they didn't have the full, complete voting right to begin with.
Yes, ma'am.
But do you think this has led to equal status and equal opportunities for women?
Ma'am, I think not necessarily, because while we have the right in paper, it is paper equality. It hasn't translated into equitability, and it hasn't translated into a substantive right. Firstly, because women intergenerationally have been disenfranchised when it comes to political power. Secondly, we have minimum representation of women in the parliament, which is in the Lok Sabha merely 14%. Thirdly, ma'am, I would say that because of the patriarchal setup of the society and of their families as well, very little independent political thought goes behind them exercising the voting rights to a certain extent.
Okay.
Which is why, ma'am, I would say that it hasn't
Now,
translated.
you've been an editor-in-chief, I think, of a legal journal.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'll ask you a generic question.
All right, ma'am.
What can be the role of opinion leaders, and I'm equating editors to opinion leaders, in policy formulation?
Ma'am, it can be very instrumental because the resources that many editorials, many leaders employ are based on empirical research and data collection, which can substitute and supplement the governmental data collection in the first place. Secondly, that policy formulation is based on a lot of background research that is done through the academic opinions by.
I'm asking, how can opinion leaders influence policy formulation in simple terms?
Ma'am, by generating and by gathering public opinion, by responding and by participating in public consultations for many of the policies that the government opens up for public consultation. And ma'am, thirdly, by creating a diversity of opinions when it comes to
Feedback.
policy and its impacts. Ma'am,
Feedback is the simplest way. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Pallavi, I was wanting to ask you questions on law, but
sir.
since you have done Sangeet Prabhakar in vocal, I am tempted to ask you a few questions on music.
So I'll try to answer them to
Very
the
well.
best of my ability.
So it is said कि उच्चारण भेद से राग भेद हो जाता
Yes, sir.
है. Can you give me an example of that?
सर, उच्चारण भेद से राग भेद हो जाता है.
Hint?
Yes, sir.
तूड़ी?
Yes, sir. Sir,
लगाव एक particular स्वर का.
sir, I'm sorry, I'm not able to.
गंधार?
Sir, Gandhar, right? Gandhar, and you can differentiate between the different styles of singing as well. So, for example, a similar song or a similar composition, bandish, that is called, can be sung in the khayal format, which would then be related to the khayal rags, which would include Bhopali, Yaman, etc. or could be sung in an elongated manner with greater breath control, and would be a form of Drupad singing with Vilambit Tal.
ओके, तो भैरवी और तोड़ी दोनों में गंधार लगता है, लेकिन गंधार को लगाने का जो तरीका है वो अलग
होता
है ना?
राइट सर.
Todi and Multani both are Rag Multani belongs to the third Todi.
Yes sir.
What is the difference
Sir,
between?
Sir, I haven't learnt Multani Rag.
Okay.
Because it's not one of the most popular rags in the gharana from which I have learnt music.
Okay. Which is your gharana?
Sir, Gwalior Gharana.
Okay.
Which is why my knowledge with respect to a lot of the other rags might be limited.
आपके घराने के कौन से प्रमुख राग हैं?
Sir, Miya Malhar, Yaman, Bhupali, rags that are based on Kafi Thaat, Khamaj Thaat. Those are the rags that...
Rag Patdeep belongs to which Thaat?
Sorry, sir?
Rag Patdeep.
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 Patdeep, sir, I'm not aware. I'm so sorry.
Kafi.
Kafi Thaat, right. It's, again, sir, I'm sorry.
No
there are
problem.
a lot of rags and
problem.
my knowledge with that respect might be limited.
100 prevalent rags. That
Yes,
is
sir.
Okay. And your favorite rag is, you mentioned, I think.
Miya Malhar, sir.
Miya Malhar.
Yes, sir.
What is the peculiarity of Bhairavi?
Sir, Bhairavi rag.
Yes.
Sir, rag Bhairavi, as far as I remember, has, it doesn't have the na swar in it, in the sat sargam, in the aro and avro. It doesn't have a na, it has a komal ga, and which is again sung in two ways, and it has a komal dha as well, sir.
So it uses all 12 notes.
Sir, it uses
But
all
differently.
Differently, yes, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why Western music, the notations are called octave,
Sir,
and yahan it is called sargam?
Saptak.
Saptak.
Yes,
Why?
sir.
What is the reason?
Sir, in the Indian classical music, we consider the sat surs that are in the most natural progression
Okay.
to be the basic set of all music.
Okay.
We have derived it from ancient texts, including the Natya Shastra.
Have you heard of Antargandhar?
Antargandhar. Sir,
Have you heard this term?
Sir, I have heard this term, but I don't think I'll be able to answer the question.
Thank you.
Your problem with music is over because I have no idea of music,
Okay,
right?
sir.
You know, the present foreign minister is a former diplomat,
Yes, sir.
and we are in very difficult times at the moment, foreign affairs wise. And he comes across as a very competent man, and it's quite clear that's because of his past 40 years in diplomacy.
Yes, sir.
You think the government should extend this philosophy of having professional ministers in Ministry of Defense? There is General V.K. Singh, who's there in the ministry. Similarly, in Finance Ministry and things like that. Will it be a good idea?
Sir, I think to an extent, of course, yes, because it recognizes a great amount of experience that they have on ground, which perhaps might be missing when partisan appointments are made on the basis of political lines. But there also must be recognition of the fact that bureaucrats in essence are neutral parties. The most essential aspect of a bureaucrat in a political setup like democracy is their neutrality and impartiality when it comes to the ministers and political lines. So I think that actually might also be a beneficial aspect because they have a professional outlook towards things. So, yes,
But
sir, I
could
think
it affect the loyalty of the people in bureaucracy, in civil services, if know that this is an opportunity lying ahead?
Yes, sir. I do think that it might create a domino effect upon the lower levels of the bureaucracy and civil servants who might expect certain returns.
All right. Why is Middle East called Middle East? It is middle of what and east of what?
Sir, Middle East of, sir, it's in the middle of Europe and Asia, and it's to the east of Western nations, US, UK, which have basically have had the monopoly.
Frankly, I also don't. I'm not sure because nobody has been able to convince me why it's called Middle East. But as a Indian Foreign Service aspirant, you may look at this.
Yes, sir.
You know, some minister made a declaration in the parliament declaring the intention to take back POK.
Yes, sir.
You think it was a wise statement to make?
Sir, I think there are two aspects to look at it. First is the political declaration, which reinforces our statement that we consider it an integral part of India. On that account, I think the statement was fine. However, when we talk about military and strategic position of POK today, and the position of our military and our capability of the military, I think it might be a little too early to claim that we can get POK back.
Right. So much awaited UN, 30, we are 30 years from today, fast forward. You are Indian ambassador in United Nations.
Yes, sir.
And the UN restructuring is now taking place. They have to select one country from Asia which will be a permanent member in the United Nations. And the toss is between India and China. So Chinese representative has made his case. You got to make your case for India as more deserving nation to be permanent member of the United Nations as against China. So this is the house. You are on the podium. You got 30 seconds.
So the first thing that I would point out is that 30 years in the future, we will have the largest population on Earth. So we will be the greatest representative of humanity on this planet. So the second thing that I would say is we would have the largest young demography, which would need to be employed and which would be the most productive in the world. So that is also another aspect that would hold us as representative of people in the United Nations Security Council. The third thing that I would say is the integrity with which India has participated in the international arena, whether it be in terms of nuclear weapons, whether it be in terms of engagement with its neighbors, or be in terms of its humanitarian aid that it has never shied away from providing to any country that has needed its help. So I would say that India has displayed this integrity in the international arena that makes it a good contender. And lastly, sir, I would say is that India's non-alignment and neutrality that would make it an impartial party in the United Nations Security Council, especially as opposed to China that has in the past and today even presently displays its own agenda on these international scales. So I think these are the few points that I would place.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Pallavi, so we will take you back outside in the waiting room for a few moments. We'll call you back for the feedback.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. May I come in?
Pallavi, tell us, how do you think you have performed at this mock interview?
So I think average, good, along the lines, better than I expected. It's one of my first mock interviews.
This is your first mock?
Yes, sir.
How many mocks are you going to attend after this?
Sir, I'm not sure because my interview date hasn't been scheduled yet.
Okay, it's post-March, that means.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for the first time you are appearing at the UPSC Civil Services interview?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Pallavi, let me first of all tell you that your performance has been very good, outstanding.
Thank you, sir.
And but that is, having said that, now that you have come so far, and since you are a first-class candidate for getting a very high percentage of marks at the interview, if this is the indication of what you did today, of course, everything will depend on your written marks also.
Yes, sir.
But don't be complacent for the next about 1.5 months.
Right,
Here is
sir.
a chance, and you should take this challenge and get over it and get exceedingly good marks. You should aim for something around 200 marks or so. Okay.
Thank you, sir. That's
All
very
right.
kind.
Now, having said that, Pallavi, let me tell you some of the positive things which you possess. You were mentally very alert and yet very calm, and you were able to articulate your answers very well. A choice of words, structuring of sentences, and everything pertaining to the priorities of the answer, because answers have to be prioritized, and you were able to prioritize the answer, which again is a very good thing. You were very clear and succinct and logical in your expressions, clarity of thought and confidence, and at the same time you were able to think while standing there on your legs, figuratively. So I would say that you have done exceedingly well. But then there are certain things which we would like to say. Your communication skills are par excellence, very good. Your attitude is also very positive. Your knowledge is also exceedingly good. But just to supplement what, because naturally we cannot ask all the questions, and you will be asked questions definitely regarding Madhya Pradesh, regarding Bhopal. So read through the Gazetteer of Bhopal, which are the important institutions, why it is important in terms of areas which I would just quickly glance through it.
Yes, sir.
The history of Madhya Pradesh, the social problems of Madhya Pradesh, industries, culture, tourism, eating habits, the main crops, the water potential, the power, everything about that. Okay.
Sir.
And then about your own district, that is Bhopal. That is one. The second is that since you have done your classical music is your mainstay, so naturally that is your hobby. So a lot many questions will be asked you. Some of them questions we did ask you, but there may be, you may invite many questions on that. Reading thriller, pick up one thriller which you have read.
Okay, sir.
Okay, one thriller. So that if they ask you which is the thriller you have read, you may name that thriller, and they can ask you questions on that. House captain, I asked you many questions. So the foundational values which are required for a civil servant. What does ethics and values mean for a civil servant? That you should know. And then coming to the law. So read the constitution once again. I'm sure you must have read it so many times.
Yes, sir.
And the different statutes and enactments pertaining to the women, pertaining to children, pertaining to the senior citizens, everything you should go through that. So Domestic Violence Act and Equal Remuneration Act and Eve Teasing Act and Dowry Prohibition Act and POSH, everything.
All right, sir.
All right. Then regarding children, POXO Act and Juvenile Justice Act, and similarly for senior citizens also.
Yes, sir.
India and its neighbors. Read the policy of India, foreign policy vis-a-vis the neighbors,
Yes, sir.
and then the policy of India vis-a-vis the other important countries. The place of India as a permanent member of Security Council, that of course is something which keeps on raising head. And then the role of the United Nations is vis-a-vis, for example, respect of Ukraine and Russia war.
Yes, sir.
We have found that it has not been able to have any influence in stopping that war.
Yes,
So
sir.
why the effect is going down? You must go through that. The reforms in the Bretton Woods institutions and other institutions,
Yes,
role of WHO, COVID-19, the global issues which are being faced by the world, that is the poverty and hunger and
Yes, sir.
migration and drugs and
Climate
COVID-19
change.
and climate change,
Yes, sir.
terrorism, all these things you
Yes,
should.
sir.
The Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes, sir.
Also read through the budget. Your
Yes, sir.
interview is going to be
In
post March. So
Yes, sir.
budget would be there, and economic survey
Economic
of
survey.
India. Go
Yes,
through
sir.
that also.
All right, sir.
And the privatization of the PSUs, that is the policy which the government is pursuing nowadays. Divestment, disinvestment,
Yes,
now privatization. So read through the asset monetization pipeline which the finance minister announced. Go through the Niti Aayog website and try to find out what exactly is there. And then in constitution, everything regarding president and vice president, impeachment of judges and how the judges are appointed, what are the lacunas in that, the enactment which was brought about by the government of India, it was struck down
NGC.
by
Yes,
so then what is there? Is it in a limbo? What exactly needs to be done? The collegium system, is it the best one, or
Yes,
it
sir.
needs to be replaced by another system? All these things questions may be asked to you. And then e-governance and the good governance principle. And there are many other things relating to reservation of women, for example, issues relating to that. What will you do in case you come across a situation in which the women of a society in your district are facing certain problems? How will you ensure justice is given to them? How will you ensure the enrollment of the girls in your school, and so on? These things issued. Women empowerment, gender sensitization, and POSH. They will be definitely there. And then things concerning the revenue administration, understand that. Go to a collector's office, go to a block development office, go to a village
sir.
to see how things happen. And that, because even if though Indian Foreign Service is one of it's number 2 preference, isn't it? So number 1 is still Indian Administrative Service. So you need to know about the Zilla Parishad, 73rd, 74th Amendment, how things actually happen. What are the funds, functionaries? That is the concept.
Yes,
3
sir.
things which are important. Important thing like Kara, like PESA, and soft power, welfare state, which are the official actors, which are the unofficial actors in the policy making process. That you should go through. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And why why civil service? That is the question which will, you must prepare that well.
Okay, sir.
So that's about it. If you have any questions, you can ask us.
Sir, I actually wanted feedback on the areas that I was getting stuck in. I wanted your advice. Again, Hindustani classical music is the area that I kept getting stuck on. It's such a wide area, and perhaps I won't be able to answer most of the
understand.
questions that
Actually,
might be put to me. How do I
see,
go
the
about
thing is-
preparing for
Straight
that?
away announce you are from Gwalior Gharana and this is what.
Actually,
Okay, ma'am.
you see,
So that
Gwalior
might limit the
Gharana,
scope
yeah.
of questions.
And you are very good. I mean, you are really good. Since you have taken this formal degree,
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm a musician myself and have some grounding in music and have studied out of passion. But these questions, these are not easy questions, I can assure you.
Okay, sir.
Ucharana bhed, rag bhed, and characteristics of, various.
Different
These are technical things.
Okay, sir.
But if you have, there is a wonderful book by Pandit Ram Ashray Jha,
Okay, sir.
Swar Geetanjali.
Yes, sir.
Abhinav
Swargi
Geetanjali.
So these are the books that we are referred to in the course. These are the books that we've read in the course. So I think I should go and revise
Ramesh
that.
Shah
My
did
base
So
not
brush
have
up
any degree,
whatever you
and yet
have.
he was the head of
Don't
the department.
expand too much. Just be thorough with what you have already done.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So this,
Don't get confused at this
yeah,
stage that
if
you have to
can,
do this, you have
if
to do
whatever
this.
you can recall.
Yes,
See,
sir.
whatever you've
Brush
studied,
it up.
only that you can.
You see, you don't have to bluff.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely fine.
whatever.
You're not expected to know everything.
So your Gharana is fine.
Okay.
And if they ask any questions, it may be, you may not be knowing that. So you can always.
Some eminent singers of your gharana,
Yes, sir.
rags of your gharana.
Rags,
These
singers.
are the common ones.
Okay, sir.
But your answers in respect.
They were quite
of-
good.
They were very good.
The music was
Okay.
you came out quite well. What is the learning from music which you can carry from there, or how is that helped you to develop as a person? What you are. Those kind of generic questions you can also
Okay, ma'am.
think about.
Yes, ma'am.
So otherwise,
And this,
just brush up whatever you have.
These rags are according to prayer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
समय राग की जो वो है
Samay,
ना,
time theory of music.
तो प्रथम प्रहर, द्वितीय
Dvitiya
प्रहर,
prayer,
तृतीय
Uttarang,
प्रहर,
Purvang.
उस हिसाब से देख लो.
So whatever you have, just brush that up.
Okay.
Any more questions?
I think I'm actually quite happy with the feedback.
We are also happy.
So
We'll
will
wish
do
you all
very
the
well.
best.
You will do
Thank
very
you,
well.
sir.
Just don't be complacent and go on, moving in the direction in which we have indicated to you.
Okay,
And I
sir.
can assure you that you will be performing exceedingly well in
Thank you,
terms
sir.
of your interview. Okay. We'd like to see you as the future civil servant.
Thank you so much.
All
What's
the
your
best.
first
Thank you.
choice?
Administrative
yes, yes,
services.
Not foreign service?
Ma'am, it's my second preference.
No. Here in paper. I'm not asking on paper.
Ma'am, my first preference is administrative services.
Still
in
it is.
life.
Your heart
Yes,
is
ma'am.
there.
Ma'am, I want to work at the ground level,
Okay.
which is something that only administrative services
Okay.
can provide.
All the best.
Diplomats work in the air, right?
Sorry, sir.
The diplomats work in the air.
No, sir. Thank you so
I
much.
All the
sir.
best.
All the
Thank you,
best.
ma'am. Thank you.
An academy. Let's crack it.